The greatest of all time. Today I'll be reviewing the Canon AE-1 program and showing you how to use it. Welcome to Dan Bullman Photography. If this is your first time watching, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below and check out some of my other videos on vintage cameras and film. Now let's get to it. The Canon AE-1 was originally released in 1976, and the Canon AE-1 program was released as an update in 1981. Now I'll be specifically covering the Canon AE-1 program in this video, but a lot of the information will also apply to the original AE-1 as well. First off, the AE-1 program has an electronically controlled shutter, which means that you need a battery to shoot with this camera. The camera takes a 6-volt lithium battery, which you can easily find online or at other retail shops. See the links in the description for more information on battery options. To load the battery, remove the camera grip with a coin. Then simply open the battery chamber and insert your new battery. Put the grip back on and secure it into place with a coin. I don't usually use the grip because it feels kind of uncomfortable and awkward to me, so I just leave it off. Next, you'll need some film. This camera takes any 35mm film. To load the film, open the back by lifting the rewind crank until it releases. Then drop the film cassette in like this, pull the leader across, and slot it into place in the notches on the take-up spool. Fire the shutter once and advance the film with the lever before closing the back. Take 2 more blank frames until your frame counter window is at 1. Now you're ready to shoot. The shutter release button is on the top right of the camera. Make sure the switch is set to A in order to take a photo. Setting the switch to L locks the shutter release, which is good when you're not using the camera, but not so great if you're trying to take a photo. The shutter speed dial is next to the shutter release. Settings range from 1/1000th of a second to 2 seconds and bulb mode for longer exposures. To adjust the aperture on the lens, simply turn the aperture ring to the desired setting. To set your lens aperture to the A or automatic setting, press the black button next to the A marker on the aperture ring and turn the ring until the gold line matches up with the A. So let's talk about some of the automatic settings on the AE-1 program. When you set your shutter speed to program and move the aperture on your lens to A, this puts the camera into program mode. This allows the camera to choose the aperture and the shutter speed automatically to give you a proper exposure. This is a good mode to use if you're just getting started out in photography or just don't feel like making adjustments to the aperture and the shutter speed on the fly. When your aperture dial is set to A, but you choose a shutter speed other than program, this puts the camera into shutter priority mode. You select the shutter speed, and the camera automatically adjusts the aperture to give you a proper exposure based on the available light. If you half press the shutter button, you will see a number pop up in the bottom right side of the viewfinder. This number indicates the suggested aperture setting based on the light meter's reading. ISO is adjusted by a dial under the film rewind crank. Press the silver button and adjust the dial with the black lever on the opposite side. ISO settings range from 12 to 3200 ISO. The design of the ISO dial on the AE-1 program is a huge improvement over the original AE-1, which has an annoying ring on the shutter speed dial that you have to lift and turn to adjust the ISO setting. If you're new to shooting film, just set the ISO to match the ISO of your film. This is usually listed on the packaging of the film and the film cassette. So for instance, Kodak Portra 400 is a 400 ISO film. Unfortunately, there's no aperture priority mode for the Canon AE-1 program, but this really isn't a big deal for me since I like shooting in manual mode anyway. A contemporary camera that does aperture priority well is the Nikon F3, but it's also a more expensive camera, so if you're shopping around, be mindful of that. The AE-1 program is also only capable of manual focus since autofocus film cameras didn't become common until later in the 1980s. Achieving sharp focus with this camera is not very difficult though, once you've had some practice. To adjust the focus, simply turn the focus dial on the lens until the image appears sharp in the viewfinder. There is a split focus aid in the center of the viewfinder to help you judge focus. The Canon AE-1 program uses Canon's FD lens mount, which gives you a ton of options for great lenses out there. It isn't difficult to find vintage Canon lenses on the used market for incredible prices. I've put links down in the description for some places that you can buy Canon FD lenses today. Changing lenses on the AE-1 program is easy. To remove the lens, press down on the silver button on the lens collar, turn the lens until the red dots line up, and gently pull the lens off. To mount a lens, press on the silver button on the lens, line up the red dots, and turn the lens clockwise until it locks into place. When you've finished a roll of film, rewind the film back into the cassette by pressing the black button on the bottom of the camera and turning the rewind crank in the direction of the arrow, which is clockwise. You will feel a release of tension once the film comes off the take-up spool. When this happens, turn the rewind crank one more full turn and then open up the back and remove your film. Finally, send your film off to a lab or develop it at home and enjoy the magic of analog photography. Hopefully this video will get you up and running on the Canon AE-1 program. I've put a link to the camera manual in the description if you want to dive a little bit deeper on advanced settings and things of that nature. If you're shopping for an AE-1 program, I would recommend buying one used online or at a local camera store. There were millions of these cameras produced, so they're really not that difficult to find. I'll put some links down in the description for places where you can find a Canon AE-1 program online. Is this the greatest camera of all time? Maybe not in terms of advanced features, but lately this has been my favorite film camera to shoot with. It is lighter and more compact than many of the mechanical cameras from the 1960s and 70s, plus it's very precise and user-friendly, which makes it great for amateurs and advanced photographers alike. It is a great merger of the fantastic build quality and aesthetics of earlier film cameras with the more automated features of cameras released later on. For this reason, the Canon AE-1 program will forever hold a place in my heart and my camera bag.